How will things be different under Peter DeBoer for the New York Islanders? The answer may determine the season. We've got that next.
You're Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here. Welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday bonus episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We have got a lot to get to. We're going to talk about some of the differences we see under Peter DeBoer, including the latest line combinations and injury updates. Really a question about the direction of the team, and we will answer your mailbag questions as well. Let's start with what we saw on Tuesday at what was the second day of practice for Peter DeBoer. And now we have a better idea of where we're at with the line combinations and the defense pairings. And of course, we've got some injury updates. And hopefully, we will get to see more of the injured returning. Casey Cizikas, by the way, missed his second consecutive practice for what has been described as maintenance. He is, according to Coach DeBoer, going to skate on Wednesday, so tomorrow. Meanwhile, Tony DeAngelo, he skated on his own, is still listed as day-to-day, and DeBoer said he was likely to skate with the team on Wednesday, but again, we'll see. Remember, the Islanders do not play again until Thursday. The line combinations in practice, as a couple of guys did return who had maintenance days yesterday. Anders Lee on the left wing, Simon Holmstrom on the right wing, and Bo Horvat in the middle. That's the top line. Braden Shen, Mathew Barzal, and Cal Ritchie, the second line. J.G. Pajot, Max Shabanov, and Emil Heineman, the third line. And then the fourth line was Kyle McLean, Andre Palat, and Mark Gatcomb. Anthony Duclair, the extra forward. Again, remember, no Casey Cizikas, so you got to wonder whether McLean sits, Gatcomb sits, or Palat sits, or Cizikas sits when he's ready to return. But as of now, it's McLean, Palat, and Gatcomb on that fourth line. Meanwhile, on the blue line, Mathew, Schaefer, and Ryan Polak are the top pair. Adam Pelech and Carson Soucy are the second pair. Isaiah George and Scott Mayfield, the third pair. A fourth duo was put together of Adam Boqvist and Alexander Romanov. Again, Romanov still not expected to play for at least a couple of more games. They said he may be able to come back for at least one of the last two regular season games. So it looks like Boqvist and Romanov, at least as of today, would be the extra defenseman. Sorokin back in practice along with David Riddick. So Holmstrom and Polak returned. Cizikas still out. Sorokin returned. DeAngelo still out. And that's kind of where we're going. And, you know, the thing right now is, and there's something that Peter DeBoer said at practice that I think makes a lot of sense. And here's what he said. I'm going a little old school for sure with the whiteboard and the jerseys. Apparently he's having the forward lines wear the same color jerseys, something Al Arbor did back in the day. He said, I'm drinking from a fire hose right now and trying to get up to speed, just trying to get information to the guys without paralyzing them. And I think that is really the key for this Islanders team right now. Getting a message across from Peter DeBoer as to what he expects them to do without making it where they're thinking so much on the ice that they're less effective. It is a very fine line that he has to walk, and hopefully he is able to walk it. And, you know, I've been thinking about a couple of other possible issues for this team. And, yesterday, everydayers will recall we mentioned, how important the relationship between Peter DeBoer and Ilya Sorokin is going to be. And there's no question, especially when you consider the issues DeBoer had with Jake Ottinger in Dallas, with Robin Lehner in Vegas. You want to make sure that goalie, and let's face it, Sorokin remains the best player on this team as of right now. You want to make sure that goalie and coach are on the same page. I think that goes without saying. But then the other big question that I have, that I think the Islanders kind of need to figure out, is how does the replacement of Patrick Roy with Peter DeBoer impact Mathew Schaefer? And I don't know if we have an answer. And we probably, we may not even have an answer for the last 4 games of this season. Now, if the Islanders do get into the playoffs, I think we're looking at a much more realistic opportunity to get some answers, or at least to begin to get some answers. But, and I think it's true for the whole team, but it's also, I want to kind of focus on Schaefer. Mathew Schaefer has had a lot of freedom under Patrick Roy. And I know that DeBoer wants more of a defensive-oriented system, which I think the team definitely does need. But how does this impact Mathew Schaefer? How much of a green light will Schaefer get? And those of you who were able to watch the Monday show where I had J.D. Young of Locked On Sharks here to discuss what he recalled about DeBoer's time in San Jose. And he talked about how DeBoer really kind of turned loose his star defenseman and allowed him to play 30 minutes a game and handle the puck all over the ice. And will we see a similar thing with Schaefer? DeBoer has been gushing about Schaefer and what he potentially brings to the table, which I think is great to see and to hear. But again, how this all plays out is going to be extremely interesting. And Schaefer, who has been sort of the engine on the ice for this team, is going to need to continue to do just that. So the concern is, how does Mathew Schaefer respond to this change in coaching? Because you need Mathew Schaefer on top of his game if this team is going to do anything in the last 4 games of the regular season. If they're going to win 3 or 4 of those games and have even a chance of getting into the playoffs, you need Schaefer for the short term. And then obviously for the long term, it'll be vital for Mathew Schaefer to buy in to whatever system that Peter DeBoer is implementing and making that work. You need, for this team to continue to play well, you need Mathew Schaefer to be Mathew Schaefer and to continue to grow and develop and improve. So it'll be very interesting to see how this all plays out. And we always do this, and we have to be kind of aware. Do not overreact to what we see in even all 4 of these games. Whether Mathew Schaefer goes out there and looks tentative because he's not sure of what's being asked of him, or if he goes out there and absolutely has the 4 best games of his career to date. Either way, we should not be overreacting to the first 4 games. It'll give us a slight indication of what the potential is. The good news that I see so far is that DeBoer is raving about what he's seen on film from Schaefer. And Schaefer, and this should be no surprise really to anyone who's been listening to Mathew Schaefer all year or watching him, he has a lot of good things to say about Peter DeBoer and what he's accomplished in this league and what he's been saying in practice so far. So look, we're at the honeymoon stage, right? It's a mutual admiration society and everyone's saying all the right things. Now the question is, what happens when everybody takes the ice. We're going to find out more about that starting Thursday night when the Islanders host the Maple Leafs. Going to be a heck of a finish to what has been a very entertaining and interesting season. And I hope the Islanders have one more run in them, close out this season strong with a lot of change going on. So we'll see how that all plays out. We have got a lot more to get to on this bonus episode. We're going to talk a little more about the direction of the team and answer a lot of your mailbag questions. Keep them coming. We got that and more next. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. Here's what I like about it. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The app makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, that extra insight really matters when you're looking at stats, role players, and key moments. It just makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. So head on over to FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed, Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping that the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the time I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On Islanders. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Let's dip into the mailbag. I know we've been getting some really good questions. This one comes from Mathew. He says, when Darsh came in, he said all of the right things. We were committed to a rebuild. We needed to get younger, faster, and more skilled. I'm not so convinced he is headed in that direction now. Schenn, Palat, and Soucy, coupled with the unexpected season and now the hiring of DeBoer, we are in win-now mode. I don't think enough young players were added to get us where we need to be in 3 or 4 years. I would have been fine with another year of Wah and then transitioning to a younger coach who could stay with this team for 5 to 10 years. What are your thoughts? Let's start with this. First of all, Mathew, thank you for the question. And obviously that ship has sailed as we have moved on from Patrick Waugh. I'm split with you on this. I do agree, first of all, that, I think this team is back into win now mode, and I think that's a mistake. I think that you got Schaefer. That's really good. And I think if I'm trying to understand the logic, you've got Schaefer, you've got Sorokin, Barzal, and Horvat. Those are sort of your big 3, skaters and a goalie. And the clock is kind of ticking, especially on Horvat and on Barzal, and a little bit on Sorokin. So that you want, while they're still, quote unquote, in their primes, and while Schaefer is still on his rookie contract, you want to try to do something. But I think it is wrong. I didn't like the Palat, Soucy, and Schenn additions. I think that we looked at what the record was, but not at the big picture as to where the team really is at. And as a result of that, we jumped the gun and started adding players to go into win now mode when we really needed to continue a retool. And in defense of Darsh, he did not say rebuild, he said retool. And then just got a little too enthusiastic. Again, if you break down the numbers and look underneath it, the way the Islanders won a lot of games this year, all those 1-goal games, those overtime games, you won because your goalie stood on his head and you had great performance, surprisingly quick, great performance by a rookie defenseman. That was not and is not a sustainable model. And I think you added those veterans a year or two too soon. Patience is a virtue. Ownership, management needs to exercise it. I know they want that playoff money, the income you get from hosting 2, 3, 6 playoff games, but you get a heck of a lot more income if your team makes the playoffs 4 or 5 years in a row and goes deep into the playoffs because you've built a consistent winner. And that is definitely part of the issue. Next question comes from Chuck in Florida. Do you think the recent losing streak and coaching change helps us or hurts us for 2027? Rough week for our boys. Thank you for the dedication to your listeners. First of all, thank you, Chuck, for those kind words. Small picture, obviously it hurts. This team is not likely to make the playoffs. They still could, but it's, that with the games in hand are the concern. And it's now the odds are less than 50% that the Islanders will make the playoffs. What impact the coaching change will have in the short term remains to be seen, but there's nothing to lose at this point. If you get a bump from the change, great. If you don't, it was a long shot anyway, and you kind of regroup. The key is what happens next year, 2026, 2027. Can Peter DeBoer, by being more structured, get this team to a better, more consistent place? I think that answer is, yeah, he probably could. And then the next question after that becomes, what during the offseason does Mathew Darsh do? Is he, how quickly do guys like Eklund and Yzerman and Aitchison, how quickly are they NHL ready? We don't know. And how quickly, once they're in the NHL, do they actually start to become consistent, productive players? What happens this offseason? I think the change was necessary. That I have very little doubt about. Whether it could have happened after the season or not remains to be seen. But I think the change made sense. And now the question is, over the long haul, how does the team respond to DeBoer? How does DeBoer interact with Schaefer, with Sorokin, with the other leaders on this team? And then does Mathew Darsh move out some more of the older players who need to be moved out in order to make this team competitive on a regular basis? What we'll see, I think, to answer your question, this opens the door for possible bigger success down the road, but it certainly does not guarantee that kind of success. And we'll see what happens with that. We'll see. It is certainly going to be a very interesting finish. And we have one more question to get to here. This is from Christopher, a friend of the show. Here is a question for your bonus episode, and I'm serious about this. Why is it that Darsh gets to choose his own guy and fire Patrick Waugh? In a business, you have to learn how to work with people you like and don't like. whether he likes it or not. Isn't that how the system works? Christopher, fair question, but no, it's not how it works. The GM, part of his job description is hiring and firing the coach. And quite honestly, Darsh did not have to even keep Patrick Waugh at all. Did not have any need to keep Waugh as his coach, even at the start of this season. As soon as Darsh was hired, he certainly could have said, you know what? I don't think Patrick Waugh is the guy for this team, and he's gone. But he didn't. He gave Waugh a chance. There were obviously some things he didn't like that he saw over the course of the season, especially later on. And he made his move to try to get someone who he thought would help the team in the long term and maybe even in the short term to try to sneak into the playoffs at the end of this year. Will it work? No. Where what you said is true is more so with players or assistant coaches where, okay, player one may not like player two, but they have to at least get along well enough to work together. We'll see. But for a general manager, he's under no obligation to keep a coach. The question is, obviously, will ownership go along with the move? Because now ownership is going to pay Patrick Waugh at least a couple of more years, whatever was actually left on his contract. We'll see how that all plays out. But as soon as he got that clearance, part of his responsibility is bringing in the coach he feels is best for this team, and we'll see how that all plays out. But thank you so much for all of those really good questions, and we have got a few more things to get to. We've got that coming up on this bonus episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Spring is a natural reset point. If there's one thing that can quietly cost businesses money, it's messy communications. Missed calls, scattered text, and no clear thread of who said what. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Quo is the #1 business phone system with G2, with over 3,000 reviews, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses. It lets your entire team share one business number so you never miss a call, text, or opportunity. The part I love, everything lives in one clean thread: calls, texts, voicemails. The whole team sees the conversation, so nothing falls through the cracks. And the AI summary saves serious time by logging calls and highlighting the next steps automatically. It just makes your business feel more organized and responsive. So make this the season that no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/LockedOnNHL. That's quo.com/LockedOnNHL. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. And this is the perfect time to check out the Everydayer Club. You will get ad-free episodes of Locked On Islanders, access to a group chat with me and other listeners of this show, some real hardcore Islander fans in there. So tap the link in the show notes or go to lockedonislanders.supercast.com for more information. Folks, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. If you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can follow the show on X at Locked On Isles. You can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYRVSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for a little instant insight and analysis, and it's always great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. I want to thank everyone who made Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, we are back with our regular episode tonight. We'll have our weekly farm and prospects report. We'll talk about the possibility of one of the Islanders' top prospects possibly joining them for a few games down the stretch. What that means, we'll talk about all of that on tonight's show. So make sure you join us for that, the regular Wednesday episode. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. Thanks for watching and listening. And of course, let's go Islanders.